Today I want to talk about pragmatism and what it really means because I think it's a fascinating topic. I think it's important to see both sides of any given topic that you're exploring and to understand that for every good thing that you'll find, there's also going to be something bad, if you will. And that's all right. It's the way it's supposed to be. We tend to think that we should be crusaders against whatever's wrong or untrue or incorrect. That's probably not the best way to look at it. Because if you try to force other people to be more enlightened, that's really just tyranny by another name. When you think that you know everything, you think that you've figured out absolute truth, and then you think everyone else should sign up for it. It doesn't matter whether you are doing it in the name of a religion or you're doing it in the name of liberal progressivism. It's all really the same thing. It's that sense of, I know something, and everyone else ought to know it too. And if they don't want to know it, then maybe they should be excluded in some way, or they should be forced to learn. That's a very dangerous way to look at life. And it's also unfair because no matter how much we think we know the truth, we don't exactly know the truth. Suppose I took a black marble and a white marble, and I asked you which marble represents the color of the sky. Well, first of all, sometimes the sky is light during the day. So, by that standard, you might say the white marble, because the white marble is light and the sky is light during the day. But then, what of the night sky? Perhaps the black marble would be a better representation of the sky because the sky is dark at night. Or we could take a moment to point out the fact that the sky is neither white nor black at any given time. It might be lighter or darker, but it's not completely any one color. Certainly not all black or all white. Fighting for truth is sort of like taking one of those marbles and then heading out and saying, here's the truth. The sky is the color of this white marble. Perhaps, in a sense, you could say that the white marble reflects the color of the sky during the day, but it's not blue. It's not really right. So if you have only those two color marbles to tell the story with, you're not really going to be right. Doesn't matter which one you pick. It's kind of like that for us. We think we have these amazing faculties and we can know all these different things about the world around us, but the truth is the cosmos is a very complicated place. We don't really know very much. We see through a glass darkly. Our tools in the toolbox for explaining the world around us are limited. And when you use limited faculties and limited tools as a medium for teaching about and explaining things which are by nature limitless and infinite. Even if you're closer to being right, you're still not really right. You might be more right than someone else. It's quite possible. But it's all still a relative science. So it's important not to be judgmental toward other people. It's important to see all the positive ways that people will have to look at the world and look at the human experience and celebrate them. But then at the same time, being inclusive also requires that you allow people the space to be themselves as they see fit, even if that means excluding you. And that's maybe where we start to be a bit, well, what should I say? We start to be a bit hypocritical, because nobody wants to be treated poorly. Nobody wants others to look at them unfairly and judge them, especially if you feel like you're enlightened in some way. It's not fun to feel like you're punished for that. And yet that's part of the duty of having a position on anything, to understand that not everyone's going to have that position, and not everyone should. So, for example, I'm a big fan of Christian tradition. I love the old hymns. I admire the culture of everything that the church in all of its forms has done to advance and contribute to our societies and to civilization. And yet I'm not personally a religious person. So I could go sit in a church service and I could enjoy the church service. And I could have a lot of respect for the people who practice their faith. And yet the truth would be that I also understand that they don't see things the way I do. And because I respect their faith, I am not going to try to convince them to think the way I do. I also know that their position is to feel a need to convert me. And no matter how much I feel secure in my position, to that other person, it's extremely important to try to convince me of theirs. So for that reason, while I have a lot of respect for the faith, to respect it fully, I have to make sure that I keep my distance from it personally. Because as soon as I interfere with their practice, as soon as I'm there being a distraction, then both of us are done harm, because they feel a need to try to compel me to be different than I am. And I feel a desire to be defensive and perhaps to make a case for my position at the expense of theirs. So, on one hand, I believe that I'm right in being more of a agnostic, religious, pragmatic, if you will. And yet, I also believe that we should have a well-rounded society that includes all sorts of different cultural beliefs and styles, and the world would be a lesser place if we eliminated those aspects of diversity in our society. Often respect means respectful distance. It doesn't mean that you sit down and you hash it all out and then you are all on the same page on everything. Often it means accepting differences and understanding that people who think differently than you are going to exclude you. They're going to try to change you. They're going to make it their business to try to meddle in your business and disrupt your life if you let them. So you celebrate who they are at a distance, but you don't get so close that it becomes personal. It's kind of like bears in the forest. I like bears. I think bears are beautiful, wonderful creatures. And yet, it would be wise not to think that the bear is my friend, because the bear's way of living is different. Not wrong, but different. And if I don't acknowledge that, and I think that the bear's destiny is to become enlightened, to be my friend, that might end poorly. And by the same measure, if I convince myself that the bear is wrong for being a bear, and that I should try to convince him to have a different nature, to be more human, if you will, that will be a disappointing venture as well. Because the truth is, the bear should be a bear, exactly as bears are. And the best way to respect them is to give them their space, sometimes to be ready to protect yourself from them, but also not to believe for a minute that just because they can be threatening and because they're best left alone, that they shouldn't exist or they shouldn't be as they are. And that's pragmatism in a nutshell. It's understanding that things can be both good and bad all at the same time and not really be either good or bad. They just are, and to accept that. And I think on the surface, we don't want to hear that because we like things to just be put neatly into specific buckets. You know, here's the things that are good, which should be allowed to be. And then over here we have the things that are bad, which should be fought against and destroyed. But that's not really fair. And so then where is the line, I guess? Like, where do we take a stand for truth? Well, I think that, first of all, it's important to protect the liberty of the individual, sovereignty of the individual. So if someone's liberties are infringed upon, then we have a duty, as much as we're able, to defend those liberties. So there is a place where it's appropriate to be an advocate for others, for the downtrodden. course, in our lives, generally, that's not every day for us. Usually, there's a lot more people trying to make a case that they are victims than there are people actually being truly deprived of their liberties or done harm. But when it comes to opinions and the things that make us unique, we should have a policy of opening the door when someone knocks. Being available to share our opinions when someone wants to hear our opinions. Being open to enlighten others to the best of our ability when others seek our wisdom to whatever degree we have wisdom. But also keeping what we perceive as our wisdom to ourselves when it's not sought for, when it's not asked for. To learn to stop feeling like every time we have an idea, we have to force everyone else to have it too. If you think about the people who you respect the most in life, the people who you'd want to go to for wisdom or advice, they're probably not people who go out and tell you every time you're screwing up or are always there to give you that bit of helpful insight that you didn't ask for. They're the people who are usually quiet, the people who you've observed to be trustworthy, and the people who would be willing to be honest with you, whether you like what they have to say or not, if you actually asked them for their opinion. So pragmatism doesn't mean that you don't have any position on anything. To the contrary, I firmly believe in the things that I hold to be true. After all, why would I have an opinion if I didn't believe it? And yet, I also know I'm not infallible. So, while I firmly hold my position, I also reserve the right to change it, should I be inclined to change it. If I feel that I was wrong, then I reserve the right to change my views. But in the moment, I firmly hold my beliefs and my convictions because it would be counterproductive to have a position at all if you don't believe that you're right. And yet, just like the black and the white marbles can't possibly tell the story of all the different colors in the sky, so no amount of enlightenment or wisdom or epiphany can tell the fair story of what truth is. And so I have to concede that even the things that I am the most foundationally certain of, I might be wrong about. That doesn't mean I think I'm wrong. It's just a fact that whether I think I'm wrong or not, I might be. And that commands a level of humility. But you can have humility without sacrificing confidence. You can have confidence in your position and also conviction to take a stand. You can respect people for being different without wanting them to become like you. You can value them and think good of them, even if they despitefully use you or have their own petty and ulterior motives. You can see life as a good thing without whitewashing things that aren't good. You can see good in that which is bad and allow them to be in both states at the same time. Just like night is not really night, because on the other side of the world, it's daylight. And if you went all the way out into the far reaches of space, there is no such thing as time of day. I think a lot of people think that progressivism, liberalism, pragmatism is about having the right position and compelling other people to have it too. And that's wrong. But then a lot of people also think it's about having no position. It's about being that true neutral that doesn't have any conviction, that doesn't have any thoughts, that doesn't have any sense of truth at all. That's also wrong. You see, if you take a negative amount and you add it to a positive amount of the same but opposite value, -10 plus +10, the two offset each other and it all equals 0 in the end. And yet, while the end result might seem to be the same, it's not. You can have a lot of conflicting ideas that all balance out to a true neutral. When you say, here's things that are good and here's things that are bad, and they all balance each other out at the end. You have all sorts of different conflicting, competing ideas, and you throw them all onto the bucket. And the extreme right and the extreme left all sort of congeal together and create this sense of balance, a middle way, if you will. And yet that's an amazing kind of diversity. When you have all these conflicting ideas that come together to create this savory, spicy mix of competing thoughts, that inspires the imagination. That's a powerful force of culture and progress. Having no opinion, being dead, that's another way to be a true zero. You can be a true zero just by having no life left in you at all. You don't have any thoughts, you don't have any breath, you don't have any mind. You're just dead. There in the cemetery. That's another way to be neutral. But that's not the same as being inclusive of many different things and then finding a middle way between all of them. See, in Star Trek, there is the Borg, and the Borg assimilated all different things, and it included them all in its collective. But it was cruel in its merciless desire to assimilate everything into that collective, whether it gave its consent or not. Because in its rather mechanical way of thinking, the Borg believed that if it included everything, it didn't really matter if it preserved anyone's distinctiveness. In many ways, that's the problem of modern liberalism today. People think that being neutral is more important than individualism. And when you sacrifice the things that make us unique and individual so that we can be part of a broader collective, whether we like it or not, then ultimately that's just another religion, another tyranny, no different in function than all of the old tyrannies of the ancient world. It's just perhaps a little bit more on its high horse because it thinks it's progressive. But it's still that foundational human tendency to want to control and manipulate people, to climb to the top of the pile and make a name for oneself, which is all at best silly, at worst harmful. Perhaps the great lesson is to learn to keep a lot of your opinions to yourself. Be serious, but not to take yourself too seriously. It's all worth thinking about, though. On an Easter Sunday. I hope you have a wonderful day. And till next time. Thank you. Goodbye.